We've just heard from the suppliers, and now we're going to hear from the consumers, the small business people who really have to figure out how do they make their water use work with their budgets, and how do they plan for water in uncertain times. And I'm going to begin with introducing Lynn Giacomini Stray. Lynn is a North Bay native who grew up on her father's dairy farm in Point Reyes. In 1998, Lynn returned to Point Reyes to help diversify her father's dairy, Robert Giacomini Dairy, and launch Point Reyes Farmstead Cheese Company with her father and sisters. Cheese making was new for Lynn, but the passion to make a farmstead product and work close to home while raising a family meant quality of life to her. Lynn is the COO for the company as well as the director of sales. In addition, she is involved in many local organizations affiliated with agriculture. She resides in Point Reyes with her husband Teddy and 2 children, Avery and Miles. And Lynn and Teddy own Point Reyes Compost Company, an OMRI certified compost line featuring 100% animal manure purchased from local dairies and farms, continuing the sustainability cycle. I'm going to introduce all the panelists, and then we'll begin with them having their individual presentations. Our next speaker is Michael Cronin. We heard from Michael briefly in the first panel. He is the Chief Operating Officer at Small World Trading Company, which manufactures personal care cosmetics under the brands EO and Everyone. Liquid soaps, lotions, hair care, and sanitizers are all formulated using 75 to 80% water, and supply and cost of the water is an important part of the modeling for their future growth. Our next speaker is John Buchholz. Did I say that right, John?
Yes, you did.
Good.
Thank you.
Builds and designs gardens and landscapes in Northern California. He landscapes with an emphasis on sustainability. His techniques include contour swales that help capture, slow down, and spread water on hillsides, composting and mulch to build soil structure, sheet mulching as an alternative to rototilling. John is an expert with drip irrigation, smart controllers, moisture sensors, and rainwater harvesting. These are all new techniques he uses in ushering a new era of landscape and garden building. And last is Nanda Schwartzky, who prior to her engagement as the Executive Dean of the Indian Valley Campus and Workforce and Economic Development at College of Marin, Nanda was the director of the Workforce Investment Board for Marin County and CEO of eVision Partners, a consulting firm focused on workforce development and business community partnerships. Since assuming her role as dean in 2005, the Indian Valley campus has enjoyed a revitalization supported by more than $3.8 million she raised in public and private funds. Under her leadership, innovative programs such as the Indian Valley Organic Farm and Garden and the solar technology and alternative energy and electric vehicle conversion classes built upon award-winning sustainability focus of the Marin Community College have blossomed. Nanda is also a recent graduate of Dominican University's MBA program. Let's welcome our panel. So we're going to have each of our panelists talk for about 7 minutes. We're a little tight on time, and then we'll be able to have Q&A after that. So we'll begin with you, Lynn. Thank you.
This is, as we all know, a very important topic. And just to give you a little statistic, private land, when we're talking about agriculture and private land, about 79%, 76 to 79% of all land in the United States is held by private ownership. So clean water and air affects everyone. This has been an important topic nationally as well, and I'll kind of touch on that later. But locally, as a dairy, just to give you an idea a little bit about what our business model is and our usage of water and our conservation practices and how that impacts us financially. We are a dairy that we milk about 300 cows. Having said that, we have an additional about 300 that are either replacement heifers or dry cows that we're feeding and drinking water on a daily basis. We we have 9 of our employee families live on the ranch, so we are also a community, a little village, so we have housing, domestic usage as well. We have 2 operational buildings. We have our milking parlor and our creamery, which take up quite a bit of water, which I'll talk about in a minute. And then we have a new culinary center on the farm called The Fork. That's part of our agritourism business that we've been expanding for a value-added product and brand extension for us to get people on the farm and educate them about what is farmstead, local farming, and, of course, artisan cheese. We do about 2 classes a month to the public, but we use primarily for education for our trade customers that are out there selling our products and educating the public across the country. So we have a lot of people that come through, and that usage alone takes up quite a bit of water. Our sources for water, we have a couple different sources. We're kind of on the very end of the North Marin Water District line. So part of our water for our domestic usage comes from North Marin. And then we also have 2 wells on the property that we planned for in the last probably 7 years we installed, which has helped dramatically because as we've seen this last year, we've been talking a lot about reduction and of our actual usage of that water from the North Marin. Our cows drink our pond water, so we have about 5 stock ponds for our animals. Our cows drink about 30 to 40 gallons of water a day. So times 300, 600 cows, it's quite a bit of water. Our sanitation usage, getting back to our operational buildings, just in our creamery where we do our manufacturing, we use about 1,200 to 1,500 gallons of water a day in sanitation. More for our pasteurizing of our milk as well. And I'll talk about our conservation practices with that and how we're saving water in that area in a minute. And then, of course, we have our grass. So our grass is our main commodity and very, very important because the cost of feed is outrageous. And so the more we can grow, about 30% of our feed for our animals comes from our pasture, which has obviously been greatly affected with the drought. Our conservation practices and what we've been doing to counter or mitigate some of the drought issues. So February 1st, we had a lot of serious conversations. Number one, we halted a lot of our public classes at the Fork, our culinary center. And as any event planner knows, you're planning 6 months out and you're planning towards the summer. So we had to really just stop and take a step back and limit the guests that were coming on the ranch. So that was the first thing. As well as another thing we could control were our families that lived on the ranch. So we did a mandate of reduction of their water, as well as no watering gardens, no washing your car, really simple things. Making sure, once again, our toilets were all low flow, etc. So as a community, we were trying to work together on that way before the county or anybody else was doing anything. And then we use we have a couple different stock ponds that reuse our wastewater. We put in a digester about 2 years ago, and that allows us to capture all of our wastewater, separate out our solids and our liquids. And our solids we use for composting for bedding, as well as our compost we sell to Point Reyes Compost. But our liquid, we capture that. We use our methane for our energy use. But that liquid also, we are rerouting that back to another pond that we recycle for our flush water for all of our barn stalls. So it's important to how you collect that water, and through gravity flow, we flush all of our barn stalls, reusing that water on a regular basis. And it just goes around in a cycle. We're also then, after our liquid in our digester, all of the methanogens have burned off a lot of the pathogens. We're using that as our natural fertilizer on the fields. So we're reducing the water that we're watering our pasture land with. Another thing that we've done a few years ago, was we installed a couple water tanks next to our creamery to hold our water, for water allocation. So we have a couple 2,000-gallon tanks there, one for hot and cold water that we use for sanitation purposes in our creamery. So once again, getting back to recycling, that really is the holy grail. If we can reuse that water as much as possible, as I was saying, about 1,500 gallons, actually up to about 2,000 gallons total that we're using daily in manufacturing. We are reusing that up to a week, all of that same water. So those are the things that we started doing a few years back, really not knowing what the new norm is, and that is the biggest question we have. Are we gonna have this same drought in another, in the next consecutive years? Once again, February 1st was really scary for us because we just didn't know. A lot of our ponds were way down, and we just didn't know what was gonna happen. That's when we started really stressing the conservation practices domestically. We, of course, got rain, but some of the financial impacts that affect dairies, and it goes beyond the local region, it goes statewide, it goes national with this climate change that we're experiencing. Financially, we, in January, we knew we did not have much water, so what were we gonna do? One of our biggest concerns was feed. We didn't have the grass. There was no grass for our cows. So we had to buy extra feed, so our feed costs went way up. Our expense line has just been, going up and up this year. So in preparation, we purchased more feed. So in January, a lot of that hay was already up 20% from the previous year. Today, we're very lucky. Our ponds are full. We were lucky to get our March and April rains, so we're looking okay. We're breathing again, so to speak, until next winter. But the hay that we need to buy now, the new hay, is even more expensive because we're getting that out of the Central Valley. Central Valley has experienced much more of a drought impact than I think the North Bay has. So it's affecting our feed supply. For example, we spent about $250, $60 per ton on hay coming out of the Central Valley a year ago. Today it's up to $360 per ton. So you're seeing those greatly impacted. So we're getting hay now that what they were growing just 6 months ago. So we're getting those new prices now that are even higher. Nationally, climate control, I know USDA, we're following them. We're working very closely with them, not only with our county ag partners, but also with USDA, and supporting them and letting them know about our situation. 9 states in the United States are in drought emergency today and have been for a couple years. So it's affecting everybody, and somebody was saying it's a psychological mindset, and we really need to all work together. And I'm just gonna end with one of the positive things that's coming out of USDA is they are starting climate hubs. I think there's 11 of them throughout the United States to start recording regional trends, measurements in soil and in rainfall so that we can use those tools regionally as far as forecasting and planning for the future. So there are some good things happening, but I think the new norm is here and we need to have conservation as an everyday practice.
Michael Cronin, please.
Small World Trading Company makes personal care, as we've already talked about. In 2012, we moved from our old Corte Madera location into a location down in the Canal District, San Rafael, doubling our size of our location. And I guess I'm proud to say that we've been on a little bit of a tear since our moving there, and we're really looking at some relatively aggressive growth opportunities based on our trend line currently, and I'm not sure when we go from small to medium to large, but just to give you some quick numbers, like we were saying, pretty much 50 to 60% of our water, I want to try to keep it at 60% of our water use goes into products. As we're growing, it's a little harder to keep that percentage up, and certainly we have to use technology. I think that was a smart discussion to try to keep that percentage up. But in growth, obviously, you're implementing new machines. It's harder to keep the pace on control. But in 2012, at the end of 2012, we were averaging about 1,900 gallons a day. About this time in 2013, we were at roughly 2,200 gallons a day, and as of 4/1/2014, we're at 3,200 gallons per day. As I said, that's roughly 50% to 60% going into product. We currently make about we're closing in on 8,500 kilograms of product produced a day. So we deal in kilograms, so that's 17,000 pounds. And by the end of this year, we're needing to get to close to 13,000 kilograms produced a day. And shortly, I would be looking at setting up my production facility to get to 17,000 a day by the end of or the middle of 2015. So we have a lot of growth ahead of us. Last year, we started a year ago to date, we had 41 people working in our facility. Now we have 51. And that'll probably level off a bit depending on, that was kind of getting to the growth plateau. And right now, our water cost is about 2 to 5 cents per bottle, roughly. And we have all sorts of different sizes. So the cost of water is important, and certainly if it doubled, it would affect our margin. But I think our biggest concern is really the fear of restriction. And really what I was faced with, and reason I was really interested in coming in is contingency, which was brought up. Am I trucking water in? Am I drilling a well? And, we're down in the Canal District. That's going to be salty water. And so really trying to find, trying to start the dialogue of what the threshold for starting contingency plan is from the government, or from the municipalities, is a big piece of it for us. We're also faced already, even though we recently went to doubling the size of footprint. We're currently in roughly 40,000 square foot facility. We've already are feeling the pinch. So from an economic standpoint, Marin, we already were making a commitment to stay in Marin and do CPG, consumer packaged goods, which when you get larger, you don't see that so much. And we really like manufacturing. It's a core part of who we are as an ethos of our company. So we always intend to manufacture, not necessarily source it out or have it contract manufactured for us. But as we're really, I think, needing to take a look at, we already are ready to grow. And so we have to decide whether or not we're going to continue to, grow around our current facility, around the ILM Canal Windward Way area, or if water were really to continue to be something scary in our life, I don't know if we'd have to look at another region. So this is something that has just recently kind of come up. We weren't really thinking about the fact that we might not eventually have enough water to make product. So to kind of talk about, when we did move in, we did a lot of work with MMWD. We actually improved our processes quite a bit. I think we cut easily half, if not more, from when we were in our old facility. When we moved in, we got the low flow fixtures. We're very conscious about our landscaping. We use high efficiency floor washing machines. We have a lot of work to do still. It's a capital investment. I mean, CIP, we're not quite there, but I feel like clean in place procedures, which is typical in sanitary conditions for dairy, will help us reduce our WAS system. The water that goes into products that you put on your body are essentially somewhat conditioned similar like food. So the water is conditioned highly going into the product, meaning it's cleaned up through reverse osmosis and a bunch of other cleaning steps. And we need to make an investment to increase the efficiency of our O system. Our reverse osmosis does have some waste associated with kicking out the highly concentrated water. So we're looking at some capital investments and technology to reduce our water and keep that at 60. And hopefully, I made notes that I want to be 20% down. So that's I'm going to report that back to our group that's going to be our target. And so that's our condition.
Plus, the more you conserve, it may not save you money, because if we all conserve, then the water districts don't have the same level of revenue coming in, so they may have to raise their prices. So interesting affect.
When I was working in the food in Richmond and in the East Bay, we were credited on our discharge because we weren't really throwing the water away. So we're also looking at, okay, well, we did increase our entitlement and pay for that. And we're already looking to say, well, if we want to stay in Tier 1, we have to buy more entitlement, or is there a way to have a dialogue to say, like, this actually, the water use is going into, it's not waste, right? So we're getting penalized necessarily for waste as we're growing our business. Or we have to buy thousands and thousands of dollars of water entitlement, which is fine too. So, and in a way, I guess we have to do that analysis are we just being careful not to be penalized for growing our business that uses water, I guess, basically, is something to think
The
about.
age-old question.
Yeah.
John Buckles.
Everybody wants to know how they can have their landscape and water too. People are more aware of their water and how they're using it and how they want to use it. They want to understand smart controllers, soil structure, hydro zones, native and low water plant use, and they want assurance that they're doing the right things. Save the Earth is going mainstream, and we're all getting behind it now. The demand for sustainable living and landscaping is taking hold, and all it takes are simple techniques that, when combined in the landscapes, create efficient, healthy, sustainable ecosystems that not only increase value in our property, but increase value in our neighborhoods and communities. The next big thing is soil, and for some reason no one has brought this up, but soil is one of the best ways to conserve water. If we have healthy soil structure, we use less water. When we talk about lawns and we want to install lawns, if we have healthy soil 6 to 8 inches down and our roots are growing 12 inches down, that is a very healthy lawn. It requires less water, less maintenance, less synthetics, less everything. It's more enjoyable. The use of compost is becoming acceptable practice, along with sheet mulching and other sustainable organic solutions to help us conserve and change the way we apply water in the landscape. Landscape is the first thing to be scrutinized in a water shortage. 100% across the board. You hear it everywhere. But I can't tell you how many restaurants I walk into and the water faucet's dripping, or the toilet's running, or the water's running when they're washing dishes. So I'm a little defensive about the landscape. We can all get along. The MMWD's Ordinance 421 and Title 13 clearly are defining our approach to how we plan and develop property. It's out there, it's in writing, it's coming aboard, people are getting comfortable with it, and it's happening. Bay-friendly landscaping, the California Landscape Contractors Association, Mixed Stop, continue to provide tools and guidelines for water use conservation, and people are listening now. Maybe it took a couple years of a drought, but now I think people are starting to listen, and they want to know, they want to understand what they can do to help. And in my experience, once we show someone, they do it. They get on board, and they want to help. They want to conserve. I know we drive around and we see it when we're driving, walking, hiking. We see the water on the sidewalk. We see the lawns being watered in the midday. These things do happen, but it's happening less and less. I was in Southern Cal, and I still see sprinklers watering the freeways, big overhead sprinklers, and water is running into the freeway. It's happening out there, but it's happening less and less. The trend to reduce water in Marin County and water use outside our homes is growing. And it's the larger proportion of a resident's use of water is usually in the landscape. We install landscape water meters, and we double check the landscape water meters and the homeowner's water meters monthly, and we chart it, and we know where the water use is going. We understand that we can tell you if there's a leak in your landscape or in your water use at home. So people want to know this. We chart it, we show it to them. It's included with their monthly maintenance bill. They understand, they're getting a better understanding of their water use. The trend to monitor water use and understand how we develop and improve our land will continue to be on the minds of Marin County property owners, managers, and developers, with the responsibility falling on landscape designers, architects, engineers, gardeners, and landscapes for years to come. There are no simple solutions other than continuing our efforts to design, build, and maintain sustainable landscapes. But in the end, I feel we all need balance. We have to have balance between our needs, between our expectations, and the balance and demand. I think we're on the path right now, and maybe it took 3 years of no water for us to come to that use low water use native Mediterranean. It all works in the landscape, and it works beautifully in the landscape. And I can't say enough about soil and soil structure and soil improvement and compost and mulch. These are simple techniques that have been around for many hundreds of years, and if we use them, we can continue to have beautiful landscapes and properties and keep people working.
Thank you, John.
I'm honored to be on a panel with all of you and the two people who came before us, and I've been honored over the last 9 years to be working with many people in this room as we watched what was happening starting back in 2007 and really started taking a look at the long term. What do we do with a long view around water conservation? And to that end, the college convened a group of business leaders and the California Landscape Contractors Association, members of the Board of Supervisors, and the managers of the water districts to really take a look at what can we be doing from the college's perspective, because we are the key training provider in occupations in Marin County. That is a key role of the community college system. And we wanted to take a look at what are we doing in our training programs. In fact, I have a question here that I'm expected to answer on the panel so that you have an idea what you're about to hear from me. I was asked that one issue is that if conservation demand rises and small businesses become a solution center for lower or more costly water supplies, they will need installers and workers to deliver services and products. And how is the College of Marin preparing students for careers in conservation, specifically in water conservation? And what we did when we embarked on that mission, starting in 2007, was the first thing that we did was we convened our advisory committee that included professionals and primarily small businesses. That is who landscape contractors are. And because so many of them are so small, we actually had the California Landscape Contractors Association, because if you're a business person with 3 or 4 people in your business, you're not going to be showing up at a lot of advisory committees advising on curriculum. So we got what we believed was a really good representation of a statewide and local small businesses to tell us what it was that they needed us to provide in terms of training. The most obvious was when we established a key class in our curriculum under our landscaping design program. That key class, of course, is called irrigation. As part of that, Dan participated, both of the water districts participated, because there is, if you go on the web, Qualified Water Efficient Landscapers Certification. That is a program that must be taught by a qualified water efficient landscaper, and we embedded that in our semester-long program so that at the end of each course, the instructor, who is at this time and always has been a conservation manager from the Marin Municipal Water District, then is able to provide the names of those students, and it's loaded onto the website where there are listings of landscapers who are qualified water efficient landscapers, and of course Heritage is listed on that site as well. We began this instruction and information and education around irrigation or water conservation through that course, but I was so pleased to hear you touch on going deeper, and that really, you know, on many levels, going deeper. We have the course is like a 3-unit course, 1 semester, traditional length course. That is only one of 6 courses that we teach in our certificate program. One of the courses is irrigation. The most critical course that we really, really encourage our students to go to is the soils course. That's a semester-length course simply on the structure and chemistry of soils. This is a very scientific occupation. We have a lot of science and bioscience integrated in this because you really have to understand much more about it. Another one of the classes is the ecology of landscape design, because it's more than the plants, the water, it's the entire ecosystem. And in order to teach that, a very critical piece of that is also plant identification, selection, and propagation. Again, what are you planting? What is needed to support that environment? And then we also have the very practical principles and practices of landscape design. And that was one of the reasons we actually launched our 5.5-acre organic farm and garden. And what's one of the most critical elements in that instruction is composting, mulching, and going deep into the soil, because that is also the very traditional practice of the most efficient practices in landscaping and the promotion of permaculture. And through those courses, our students really learn how this is applied at all different levels so that they can come out as the consultants you described, the people who work for Heritage and all over the Bay Area, the small businesses, the Gardeners Guild, these people are actually functioning as consultants to the homeowners and really promoting this culture and this sea change that we're seeing in terms of how we view water and how we view the function of our landscapes. And again, we'll go back to the issues around grass. And you should give me a note, Rob, to let me know if we're staying within our limit, because I know we're. Pardon me? Yeah, I appreciate that. I'm going to try to make this very
like
brief. I had a lot of notes,
3
but I'm going to
minutes.
go down from there as kind of a
I'm
cleanup
tougher
hitter.
than Rob. 3 minutes.
Thank you. Okay, great. So what we're seeing is also through our partnership, when we launched this, the North Marin Water District purchased a little robot. I call her CP30 or C3. That I can see from my office window, and it is a monitor of the California Irrigation Management Information System. We train, and because of that installation by North Marin Water District that is maintained by the Water District, our students learn how to use that system so that they are able to calibrate at the highest technology, using that technology piece that we know has to be applied for good conservation and management. And the impact on the small businesses, instead of being, vilified as people who are part of the problem, I really see what's happening is the landscapers and the landscape professionals are becoming the solution providers and the consultants, and that is a very robust aspect of the business and the small business for landscapers. But I don't want to end without also pointing to the fact that we are seeing, as in the Central Valley, in preparing for today, I talked with a lot of the construction unions, talking about how is this affecting small business across the state. And we're going to see a lot of layoffs, not just of farm workers in the Central Valley, but the electricians and builders and construction. There's going to be a hold on construction until we get the water issues managed, if we're all using wisdom in our smart planning. But the role of the College of Marin is to work with the people who may be laid off as a result of these issues and help retrain them to do the kind of construction that's going to go on in improving our infrastructure that none of us see and yet is critical to this solution. So it's the kind of construction that we're looking at. I see that coming up in our future as opportunities. As someone who is very much involved in workforce and economic development, I really do believe that each time we see a crisis like this, we do see an opportunity to really improve our state of affairs, improve our economy. And the economy and the environment are partners in a more robust and thriving economic solution that we're all living today. So the college is always there, hoping to lead, hoping to follow with a lot of this long-term planning that will benefit all of us, especially as it applies to these small businesses who are the most vulnerable when we have a crisis that comes up in terms of any resources or economics.
So this first question will go to Lynn and Michael. We hear amazing things that both of you are doing in your companies in anticipation of water shortage and trying to get your bottom line more manageable. If you take into account your forward planning, looking out 5-10 years, what kind of assistance would be valuable to you, either in information or financially or regulatory, that would help you be able to do the projections so you don't have to cut back on your growth, that you're able to go ahead and grow your companies the way you'd like to?
So from a dreamer point, I think one of the co-founders of the company would like to engage regulatory compliance, I guess, for gray water, for, I don't know, desalination, local, small level. I know there's a lot of environmental rules around that, and obviously in place for a reason, but sometimes it's from a day-to-day, that's very scary. So I think that there is these, some of these maybe pie-in-the-sky, dreamy type things. Contingency, I think I keep coming back to that. I don't know how many, underground reservoirs need to be built to hold water, or if there's some sort of, eventually you're buying truckloads of water from Oregon. I don't really know. I mean, to the question that was originally brought to the group, I was very happy that it was raining and it kind of cooled off. And so there's still that kind of question. And then I think there was a little bit of fear for me. I hadn't quite opened the dialogue. I mean, we did when we moved have to dialogue a lot with MMWD, and we probably weren't doing as well as we could have. And there's the little bit of fear of starting to ask questions. So I think also kind of the alert, like I was wondering when I was going to be told, and one of my questions was like, so when can I see a news report saying level to this and know that, okay, that means there's going to be a restriction? And maybe that's very hard to do because there's so much involved and so much, but I think that those kind of 3 points would kind of sum up. And to be honest with you, just kind of started thinking about, okay, what is a 10-year picture for water go in Marin manufacturing? So I hope that's clear.
Thank you. Lynn?
Yeah, I would agree having information and partnering in these communications a year in advance would be helpful to everybody. In the ag industry, though, I have to say we have a lot of partners. For example, right now, RCD is providing monies for
You should say what RCD
I'm
is.
sorry, yeah, Conservation District, Regional Conservation District, and NRCS, which is the National Conservation District as well. So in ag, we get some monies for example, for drought and our higher prices in our feed. We're getting some monies for that right now that we can apply for, and how that's affected the drought. So the partnership, Marin Agricultural Land Trust is one, UC Extension. We have a great group of partners that are looking at these issues, and I think we're all kind of caught in the same roller coaster that Rob was talking about. The reactionary January hits and we don't have any water, and so then everybody goes into action, and there's a lot of research that needs to be done, and mapping and information and data together before we can understand the financial impact, and then what our agencies, county or nationally or statewide, can do to respond to that. So I think this has been a good year to be able to forecast that and start looking more at 5-year plans, 10-year plans. So the information, making that available to us. Also, remember, in Northern California, the average size, we're an average size dairy, milking about 300 cows. You get down the valley, their average size dairy is about 1,000. So it's a very different economic business model. So being so small, a lot of these programs, we need to be together to propose either aggregated programs, whether it's eco-services programs. I know Marin Agricultural Land Trust is looking at a lot of that, as well as probably Sonoma Land Trust. But getting those organizations together is going to help all of us solve these problems. So, and I think it's been talked about quite a bit, so we'll see that moving forward.
No, we're hopeful out of this conference we all can plan better, and that's why I asked you, because the more ideas we can give to others who might be able to help, the better. So John, when you look at your landscaping now, one of the side effects of a drought is a big increase in insects, and I'm understanding there's a lot more beetles. We're seeing now that mosquitoes carrying dengue fever are now in 28 states. They used to just be maybe in 1 or 2 states. So are you seeing a concern there too, and you do your landscaping about different kinds of things that people have to worry about now attacking their gorgeous landscapes?
Personally, no, I have not seen or heard about dengue fever or beetles or anything like that in the landscape. Traditionally, yes, in a drought or low water use situation, as within life, the least healthy plants will not survive. And as a condition, maybe we see a different weed growing. Is it drawing in different insects and different bugs into the neighborhoods? I have not heard anything about that at all, but I'd be interested to find out if that is happening. So yeah, there's a lot of different changes that are happening in the landscape right now and in our lives and water use. So as far as that, I haven't seen it or heard anything about that. Sorry.
Nanda, when you have your amazing programs at the college, how much are people starting to look at more self-sufficiency, like putting in cisterns or using gray water? That came up. Is that an area that you're starting to educate on?
Yes, we at our organic farm, we've installed a whole water catchment system that is also related to our solar tech program, so that anything that we use for energy at the farm is related to solar. And people especially who run farms and landscaping, not sure we touched on the fact of the impact of the water shortage on energy cost. And that's going to have a big impact on small businesses as well. And small farmers are very well aware of the impact of energy and how they can save on that. And I just did want to mention, related to the pests issue, is I left off one of the classes in our certificate program, which is integrated pest management. And that is part of that whole ecosystem. And part of what we're doing in our workshops around that is we're helping everyone from the professionals to the landscape gardeners understand better the implication around killing off some species and how that impacts other species, thriving. So at an educational level, we're working on it as well.
Thank you.
The question to Michael, I think to John, sorry.
Yes.
How do you define healthy soil? And what is the impact of toxic runoff into the soil?
A healthy soil is will have many micro insects, if you will, in them that create, and they're moving all the time, and they're breaking up the soil, and they're allowing water to percolate down into the root zone rather than staying on top and running off. So if we can have that, when that happens, then it's the reduced runoff of the chemicals and things into landscape will go into the healthy soils and actually be cured almost. So, but healthy soils is defined as a soil that is alive, truly alive, with microorganisms in it. And in fact, if you took a teaspoon of healthy soil, it would probably stretch for a mile of microorganisms in there. 1 teaspoon of healthy soil. So those are all helping us work together in the landscapes.
And I would defer to the real expert on that. I think that was well said. Thank you, John.
Dan?
Overall, community colleges enrollment reflect the economy. As the economy improves, the college enrollments actually go down, and that's just generally true as a trend. What we do see in our classes is that we actually have less people who are in the workforce when the economy is booming. That's the good news, bad news. But the other side of that is that we end up getting more home gardeners who are also coming in to learn firsthand how to do it. So I don't think that, and our N is very small. You know, we're only talking about 100 or so students a year who are going through these programs. So I'm not sure that would be a real good predictor of what's happening.
I wanted to just firstly thank the Marin Economic Forum for hosting us today. Very interesting. The board is very interested in understanding the impact on businesses, and it's certainly something we have considered as we've undertaken the current voluntary rationing, and as we were threatened with the possibility of mandatory rationing, we really hesitated because we know that is a really serious impact, in particular on businesses. I wanted to respond to a couple of questions and comments that have come up. Dan addressed some of the actions that we've taken in response to water shortage. Of course, conservation comes first. Recycling is critically important. To support that, we have expanded our rebate programs and currently working on a rebate program that will be broadened to include things like gray water. But we are also looking at the long term. We've created a resiliency committee, which is looking at the future of dry years, what we can do differently. And we're looking at a few different options, evaluating new sources. You'll be hearing more about that in months to come. And I would add that we've tried really hard to communicate along the way to let businesses know, as well as homeowners, what they can expect. We work really hard to communicate through our newsletters, our website. Your bills have newsletters in them, and through the IJ. So I encourage you all to be attentive to those resources to keep you posted about what's coming. And I'll stay and I'm available for questions after. Thank you.
Thank you. So I have a question that is always on my mind. We're hearing a lot about your costs going up because of higher water prices, higher prices to make up for food, feed, all the different things that impact. How do you manage those prices in the sense of what do you have to pass through to the consumers to help you be able to remain viable as a company?
In 2006, we did an energy audit. So energy is another great way that we can take charge and control one aspect of our costs on the property. That's when we installed a methane digester. We're looking at a hybrid with solar on the houses, but that was the first step that we knew that we could control. Having said that, it's an expensive entry fee, and so you have to be dedicated and invest in the future until that can break even and just doing the right thing. So once again, as small farms in the North Bay, that's a big issue. So we're looking at partners once again to maybe help support that and aggregate. But energy is a big one that we were able to mitigate some of those high rising costs.
How much do you think of what you're doing is sort of leading the way, or other people adopting it, or do you guys talk to each other a lot? And how much do you see other firms, maybe Marin's different from Central Valley and that sort of thing?
There are grants such as getting into energy, renewable energy programs. So, you know, if my father was here, he would tell you that he's been doing this forever. He's been separating his wastewater and reusing his compost. So a lot of it is actually what a lot of farmers are doing already. We're just finding better ways to do it. We're talking about it more. It's better efficiencies. So I don't want to say that we're doing something that nobody else is doing. We're not reinventing the wheel. We're just kind of fine-tuning it. And yes, hopefully we are in, you know, on a lot of different boards so that we can share those ideas. And we're gleaning. We weren't the first ones with a digester. Albert Strauss was. So, you know, there's other people doing this. And I think because we have a national brand, we're kind of more on the forefront to be able to have the opportunity to talk about it.
And folks, just in closing, I wanted to thank everybody for coming again, and I want to thank our partners. Thanks for Dominican hosting this event, and Sam and Diane helping us coordinate the logistics here on campus. Thanks to San Geronimo and Jennifer Kim for the food and the beverage. Thank you, Jennifer. And I want to thank my regional leadership mentor, which is Cynthia Murray and Katie Murray at the North Bay Leadership Council, for what they did in terms of providing some background logistics for us. For Marin Economic Forum, these are our founding sponsors. These are our largest donors and really our backbone financially, and I want to thank them. County Marin, Autodesk, Marin General Hospital, Kaiser, Bank of America, Whole Foods, City of Novato has been a great partner. The George Lucas Educational Foundation has become a financial partner and continued Lucasfilm's investment in us, and also Bank of Marin. And Mike Cato, who had to leave, is our board president right now. So I wanted to thank him as well. But thank you all for coming. And if you want to find out more, we've had this film today. So our intention is to put this up as an educational device to live on for some time to come. So if you want, you can ask people to go to our website and check that out very soon. Thanks again for coming, folks.